I'm Isaac, and welcome to Stuff You Need to Know About Australian History. In 1901, a new nation was born. However, the young Australia still found itself strongly attached to the British Empire, and this was plain for all to see in the first act ever passed by the Federal Parliament. The White Australia policy became law under the Immigration Restriction Act 1901. This act required that anyone looking to enter Australia sit a dictation test in a European language of the immigration officer's choice. The Labor Party had wanted an explicit ban on all non-white immigration, but this was rebuffed by their senior coalition partner, the Protectionist Party. An outright ban would have excluded ethnically Indian people, black people from South Africa, and a number of other peoples who were British subjects. When places have only just become countries, they tend towards not upsetting their former colonial masters, so Labor was forced to compromise. That being said, the dictation test was quite effective. In 1901, 1.25% of Australia's population wasn't white. Under the White Australia policy, this had dropped to 0.3% by 1933 and further to 0.21% by 1947. Although on paper the policy was equitable, it was administered in a discriminatory fashion. Immigration officers would give easy tests to white people and near impossible tests to non-whites. For example,
the swag man wrapped his gnarled and desiccated digits round his minuscule ukulele and with prodigious and egregious deficiency of musicology essayed a resounding cacophonous rendition of Waltzing Matilda that caused a phobic frog to hurl itself suicidally into a brackish billabong.
If you passed, congratulations! Now do it in French, or German, or Italian. You managed that? Welcome to Australia, where your non-white complexion will prevent you from ever voting, accessing a pension, or a maternity bonus. You get the picture. Now, the how of the policy still doesn't explain the why, and there were a number of reasons. One of the most widely known reasons today was fear of cheap labour taking away jobs from Australians. The concern was that Asian labourers used to lower conditions would undercut white workers. While this certainly was a factor for some, especially the trade unions and the Labor Party, it turns out that the principal motivation for a racist policy was racism. The white men who sat in Parliament wanted to create a perfect nation and believed this would be impossible if so-called inferior races were allowed to inhabit it. Edmund Barton, the first Prime Minister of Australia, said on the matter, "These races are, in comparison with the white races, I think no one wants convincing of this fact, unequal and inferior." White Australia would become especially important during World War I. The war is most strongly remembered in Australia today for the Gallipoli campaign, which began on the 25th of April 1915. The campaign was a horrific failure, and over 8,000 Australians were killed. Contrary to popular belief, the failure of the campaign was not due to the British generals landing the Australian troops in the wrong spot. In fact, they landed them in the selected area, which was quite lightly defended. However, the Australian commanders soon grew nervous and prematurely halted the advancement of the Australian and New Zealand soldiers. After 8 months, the campaign was abandoned with a bloodless evacuation in January 1916. Despite the failure of the Gallipoli campaign, it is still remembered today as the birth of the independent Australian-New Zealand Army Corps, the ANZACs. Now that we've taken half a minute to celebrate a national legacy, let's go back to remembering our national bigotry. The Labor government was opposed to national service for the war, but Prime Minister Billy Hughes was strongly pro-conscription. The party agreed to allow a national plebiscite on the issue, in which Hughes played on the electoral fears of Asian invasion. He also attacked Catholics and the Irish due to the high number of Catholic clergy opposed to conscription. It was this scared campaigning that mainstreamed anti-Catholic sentiments. The proposal was narrowly defeated, and Hughes, fully aware of his party's lack of support, stormed out of the caucus meeting, leaving the Labor Party along with 24 other members from a 65-member caucus, though one later came back. At least he could admit he was wrong. Hughes and the other members joined the Conservative Commonwealth Liberal Party to form the Nationalist Party and held another plebiscite the following year, pledging to resign if it were defeated. It was, and in fairness to Hughes, he did. He just kind of happened to be sworn back into the Prime Ministership before the day was done. The White Australia policy would become especially important during negotiations at Versailles. The Japanese, who had been allies of the British during the war, insisted on a racial equality clause. Hughes resisted and, in the end, won out, declaring upon his return to Australia, "White Australia is yours. I have brought that great principle back to you from the conference, as safe as it was on the day when it was first adopted." Despite his initial post-war popularity, Hughes soon declined politically. Hughes's government was the first to levy income tax, and on the list of ways to make yourself politically unpopular, that's at the top. After the 1922 federal election, the Nationalists were forced into a coalition with the Country Party, who demanded and received Hughes's resignation. He was replaced by Stanley Bruce, who remained Prime Minister until his defeat at the 1929 election by the Labour Party, which had recovered from the wartime split and was now led by James Scullin. Scullin conveniently came to power just weeks before the Depression set in, and we'll discuss that next time. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you then.